There is a saying which states that if you seek the truth will set you free. This is not true. Truth is a manifestation of consciousness. It is not the outcome of desire. Consciousness can only manifest out of the unconscious. It cannot arise out of memory in the same way as thought. This applies not just to truth, but also to love, happiness, peace, calm, wisdom, courage, and other human experiences which arise as a manifestation of consciousness. All these words are used to describe a manifestation of consciousness. None of these human experiences, which are manifestations of consciousness, are something which can seek, find, or experience through thought or conscious will. Now there is an interesting question here. Is it possible to observe consciousness as it manifests? We can examine a thought, a fear, a desire, because these are aspects of physical existence projected into the mind. But can we do the same with consciousness? Or does consciousness in its manifestation change our thinking process? Can we only become aware of a manifestation of consciousness after the fact? Do we need to experience a manifestation of consciousness and then examine it retrospectively from our memory of the experience? What does it mean when we are saying that we are developing consciousness? I think we need an example here. Let's say we experience thirst. Thirst is an experience of a sensation from within our body which manifests from our subconscious through our brains. From this sensation we become aware that we are thirsty and need to drink something. But prior to the experience of the sensation of thirst, we were not aware that we needed to drink. We only became aware that we needed to drink something because we experienced the sensation of thirst. So what we need to do is dig a bit deeper. Does consciousness become aware of itself? Can that what we call consciousness be self-conscious? Or do we become aware of consciousness through our senses and the experience of sensation? Let's try another example. You're asleep. Therefore you're relatively unconscious. It's the middle of the night and you're fast asleep. During sleep you feel the sensation of needing to pee. Now you might actually be fast asleep at this point, or you're in the middle of some dream, and you feel the urge to pee. This desire to pee is a thought, because it is based on desire, but the desire arises out of a sensation which arises out of sense and the felt sense of immediate experience. So what is it that wakes you up and causes you to go to the bathroom? Is it the sensation of needing to pee, or is it a learned experience which arises from knowing that when you want to pee, you need to go to the bathroom? Obviously, when you went to sleep at night you did not intend to wake up at say 3 in the morning to get up from your bed and go have a pee. When you went to bed, you were unconscious of needing to pee at 3 in the morning. But there you were, at 3 in the morning, and peeing in your bathroom. What I'm trying to point out here is something that's very important. You experience a sensation of needing to pee. This is a sensation, like thirst and hunger, that manifests from your body. Then you have a thought, arising out of learned memory, which recognizes the sensation of needing to pee, and through thought you understand that you need to go to the bathroom. This is learned behavior. You've done it millions of times before. So what is the relationship between the sensation and the thought? What is the process of going from the sensation to the thought? How do we get from sensation to thought? Did you know you were going to need to go to the bathroom before or during the experience of the sensation of needing to pee? Well, obviously not, because you were not conscious at the time. You were asleep and relatively unconscious. Therefore, the process and relationship between the sensation and the thought and desire can only be a process of realization and recognition. What I mean by realization here is the process of becoming real. The sensation which manifest was real, so too was your desire to pee, and so too was your choice and action which took you to the bathroom. So what we have here is an unfolding process. The sensation through realization became the thought. So what we need to work out is the order of the process. I'm not referring to order in a structural sense. Structure is a pattern, and pattern is not necessarily order. Actual order arises out of relationship, so what we are looking to establish is the relationship between reality, existence, and being. So far, we only have an idea of how consciousness becomes being through realization and thought. But what we need to establish is where consciousness arises. Well, we know that existence arises or is manifest out of reality. If there is no reality, then existence cannot be real. Please keep in mind that I'm writing about something beyond the capacity of human perception and the mind. So we're dealing with probabilities and a mystical principle. Ultimate reality, that what is really, really real, exists beyond human perception and the human mind. It's a complete mystery, because it is unknown. Reality manifests as a manifestation which is realized through the human mind and perception through existence, which is consciousness. If we can perceive a tree, we know that the tree exists, and if the tree exists, it can only be real. A tree is not a concept, because we cannot conceive a tree. We can only imagine and conceive a tree as a concept, or as an imitation of a tree. So we can say that existence or consciousness arises out of reality and space. Before the tree grew, there was space before the existence of the tree. Likewise, consciousness manifests as experience out of a state of unconscious. Just as we experience sensations from within our body, such as thirst, such as the need to pee, such as hunger, such as pain, we experience manifestations of consciousness from our environment and other people. We call these experiences truth, love, happiness, wisdom, courage, peace, and so on. These are all manifestations of consciousness, and they all manifest as a sensation which we experience. Falling in love with someone is a manifestation of consciousness and a sensation we experience over which we have no control, and of which we could have no prior knowledge. It is a random, spontaneous experience that some people go through, and the experience changes them in ways which can be quite profound. The experience itself cannot be rationalized. Often the person wasn't thinking about love or wanting to be in a loving relationship with someone else. It just kind of happened. Falling in love is a far more problematic experience if that person is already married with a family. They're having this experience that they didn't want, didn't intend to happen, and also couldn't prevent from happening, but it happened nonetheless. It's a very similar experience with truth, another manifestation of consciousness. You cannot know what truth is until you have actually experienced it, and truth, like love, manifests as a sensation and then an experience. It's the same realization that goes from a sensation through a direct experience and leaves you with something to think about. But this is where we get a social issue with truth, specifically. People think you can know the truth and even speak the truth, not understanding that they are confusing consciousness with thought and truth with belief. Belief arises out of thought and is a physical phenomenon. But consciousness is not physical, like thought and language is, it can only be a sensation and an experience. There is no scientific definition of the truth, because truth is what changes your conscious perspective and fades. When you claim to know the truth or speak the truth, you are basing your thought and belief on the actual direct experience of truth. Thought and belief arises out of memory, which also records all your direct experiences of life. This is the subtle difference between knowing and realizing. Knowledge arises out of memory, and is static. It requires your participation to think to realize that knowledge into action. Truth manifests out of sensation without your participation, and like love, happiness, and so on, realizes itself. Knowledge can be realized through conception. Truth cannot be realized through conception. There's a clear difference. Truth can only be realized through perception. Therefore, not only is it not possible to observe an unfolding manifestation of consciousness, because you are directly experiencing it, it is also not possible to anticipate it or seek it either. How do you know what truth is if you haven't experienced it? How do you know what love is if you have not experienced it? How can you know what peace is if you haven't experienced peace? Or wisdom? You cannot know what consciousness is outside of your direct experience of a manifestation of consciousness and the direct experience of realization through that experience. Out of consciousness and the manifestation of existence through realization, we get the manifestation of being. You can be affected by change and experience a manifestation of being, through thought, either through a manifestation of consciousness, or through an experience of trauma. Trauma is a physical experience which manifests as karma. Examples include injury, disability, bereavement, sickness, being a victim of crime, or becoming homeless. These are examples of trauma. However, usually you experience a manifestation of consciousness simultaneously through an experience of trauma. It's just reality manifesting on different levels and planes of consciousness, and out of the experience you experience a manifestation of being. In fact, I would go as far to state that this is generally how most human beings change and become the individuals who they are. It is through these manifestations of consciousness and trauma that your individual narrative and life story unfolds. Isn't this the main content of your narrative and story? It's an unfold story of drama and trauma, love, heartache, loss, gain, pain, and happy memories. This is why it's so very important to be centered on your felt sense of immediate experience, your individual perspective, and to center yourself in trust, love, happiness, and truth.